Hello, everybody. Welcome back if you've been here before, and if you're new to this channel, then welcome. I'm glad you're here. You're definitely in the right place if you've made it to my channel. For those of you who don't know me, my name is John Clayton. I'm a recovering drug addict and alcoholic, and I've been clean and sober since February 21st, 2021. And we're reading the next section out of the basic text, which the next section is called Coming Home. These members share about reaching the end of the road and surrendering. Their paths to find recovery differed, but they all found that in coming to NA, they have come home. Yeah, I kind of felt that way, I think. You know, I remember my first NA meeting happened to be in the treatment center that I was attending, but I was going to the meeting before I got into the treatment center. But I remember my foot wasn't even in the door, and somebody's greeting me with a hug and welcoming me to the group, and it was very nice. Reflections. These snapshots of remembers experiences finding NA are meant to be similar to the sharing at a topic meeting. When I finally had a moment of honest reflection about the severity of my drug addiction, I'd already been through the loss of relationships, jobs, esteem, credibility, and personal morality. I was experiencing deep spiritual chaos. I asked myself, whatever happened to all that joy and happiness I used to feel? One night, I ran into one of my old using friends. To my surprise, he was drug free. We spoke a while, and he let me stay with him that night. He introduced me to recovery. There, I was in NA group 4 blocks away, and I started attending daily. Soon I was asked to serve as the GSR alternate, and I realized my life had taken another direction. I was no longer that same lost person. I went to my first rehab at 12 years old, just after I started doing drugs. Even though I disliked the feeling of being high, I kept using. I used drugs that I said I would never use. I thought about suicide every day and stuck a shotgun in my mouth at 14, but couldn't pull the trigger. I was a convicted felon at 15 and hated my life. I used for about 2.5 years in all. I stopped while I was in rehab for the third time, and I still felt miserable. I needed an answer. I was introduced to NA again in that rehab. I'd grown tired of living in and creating more pain. I wanted relief. We read the basic text, and this time I believed it. I started feeling that I was on a path that I could lead me out of my pain. The day I left treatment, I went directly to a meeting. They told me they loved me and that they wanted me to keep coming back, and I did. Even here in person, my life can be peaceful, orderly, and useful. and by the grace of God, I am making progress. At the end of my using, I was arrested for my robbery. Though I knew I was an addict, I wouldn't admit it. Getting high was the only relief I felt I could get, but it was becoming less effective and producing more problems. Here, I connected with a sponsor by mail. The encourages the He encouraged me, helps me work the steps. I've learned to just follow directions as best I can. My addiction progressed to the point where I couldn't speak in complete sentences. My mind was fractured, and I wouldn't sleep for days at a time. I began to take to heart what I learned in treatment, go to NA meetings. I threw myself into recovery, and I got a sponsor who taught me to laugh and have fun again without using. My mother picked me up at the treatment center that had just kicked me out. She did not speak a word until I were a block from home, where she pulled over and said she loved me and wanted me to give the necessary things a try. She might have said those words every day of my life, for all I know, but it was the first time I actually heard her say it. And I believed it when she said, I love you. I had a glimmer of hope. I'd known that there was recovery programs available, and I had met some of the NA members at the youth center on Wednesdays. They were an odd group that reminded me of hippies from the 60s. They often hung around and talked with us kids after the meetings. But it was the meetings that hooked me in, talking about the disease of addiction, not a specific drug. It wasn't long before I found my place in recovery in Narcotics Anonymous. Today I am able to look for similarities instead of being distracted by differences. This group of people took me in, and it was like being adopted by 50 older brothers and sisters. That's so cool. Last night I blacked out. Then I came to. My car was parked sideways in the driveway, and there was a bag of money on the coffee table. I thought I had robbed someone, but I couldn't remember. I knew inside I was through. I saw the sun rise and thought to myself, I'm done getting high. Now what do I do? I had heard of NA from a friend who had 6 months clean, and I went to a meeting. I approached a guy in front of the meeting place. I asked him if this was Narcotics Anonymous, and he hugged me. I didn't know what to think of that, but it didn't feel bad. I heard a lot at that meeting, and I can't see. I heard a. Sorry about this. I lost my spot. I didn't know what to think of that, but it didn't feel bad. Anyway, I know I just read that. Sorry. I heard a lot at that meeting, and some of it made sense. Feelings surfaced that I'd stuffed for years, and tears welled in my eyes. When I heard the reading just for today, some of the people even seemed happy. I met a man who had a calmness I wanted, and he agreed to sponsor me. I feel so lucky to have found NA. Me too. I don't know if you've noticed that these are individual stories. know if I can just keep my eyes dry enough to read a bit more. At the end of my using, I was in detox for 6 days. I felt very shaky for a few weeks, longer from the physical withdrawal. In former times, I'd have written a prescription for myself and easily started the addiction cycle all over again. Something was preventing me from doing what I'd always done. I was going to meetings every day and loved hearing addicts share about having good lives. I got a sponsor in my first weeks and called her every day. She encouraged me to get involved with service and started me on the steps right away. My brains were a bit scrambled at first, but she felt step work was an excellent way to help unscramble them. She was right. Despite the warm welcome I got at my first NA meeting, I felt very uncomfortable there. I always got panicky in the face of the unknown. Being an expert in justification, I told myself that I was too young. The worst thing is that I believed myself. My disease continued to progress for 2 more years. One day, after a 24-hour run, feeling desperate, I returned home to find the pamphlet Youth in Recovery on my nightstand. I was in tears when I opened it. I felt so worn out. I started going to meetings, and although they didn't calm my fears at first, I kept coming back. I grew fascinated by the new language, acceptance, humility, amends, open mindedness, and higher power. Thanks to NA, I felt I was finally going to learn how to love, or how to live, and I realized I had so much to learn. Me too. I've had so much to learn, and I'm still learning every day, and I still got so much to learn. You know, I've been in addiction for so long that I feel so inadequate to the point of I feel like that, I don't know what I'm doing half the time. And everything that I'm doing in life today, I feel like I'm doing blindfolded. Because, I don't have anyone guiding me or telling me what to do or how to do it or where to start or anyway. I think that's enough tears for Cameron for today, so I think I gotta go. Thank you everybody for joining me today. I appreciate every one of you, and if nobody's told you today that they love you, well, I love you, and I'll love you even more if you hit subscribe and like. Just like me a little bit. Okay, take care, everybody.